Hello, my name is April DeBow, and this is my PowerPoint presentation on my case study of coffee and the brain. The U.S. Food and Drug Administration, the FDA, state that about 80% of adults in the United States consume caffeine in some form each day, according to an article by Pietrangelo in 2018. It seems having a better understanding of how caffeine affects our brain functions and bodies is vitally important for the sake of our health. My hope is that by the end of this, you will have a better understanding of how safe or unsafe your caffeine intake is, and that you will have the information you need to decide if you need to make a change. So let's discuss some of the studies done around caffeine and see how it impacts our mind and body. What is caffeine? Many of us are aware that caffeine can be found in coffee, tea, chocolate, medicines, alcohol, and some foods. It is also found in the leaves, seeds, or fruit of more than 60 plant species, including dola nuts, guarana seeds, and yerba mate leaf, from an article by Nichols 2017. However, coffee and tea are among the most popular ways people consume caffeine. According to Pietrangelo 2018, caffeine is a stimulant drug of the central nervous system. It immediately causes alertness to the brain, which is a significant part of the central nervous system. Caffeine is extremely effective in the brain because it successfully blocks adenosine triphosphate, ATP, which is known to cause drowsiness. And this is from an article by Lazarus et al. In 2017. Here's an illustration, and it shows the adenosine and the caffeine. And so the caffeine actually blocks out the adenosine, like we mentioned, because these white parts coming out of the brain are receptors that help carry the messages to our cells. And when the caffeine is already in the receptors, it's blocking out the adenosine, so the brain is getting the caffeine messages rather than the adenosine. Benefits of caffeine. According to Nichols 2017, caffeine may boost weight loss or prevent weight gain, be beneficial to brain functions, and improve physical performance. Some studies on caffeine have suggested it can lower the risk of a stroke, type 2 diabetes, reduce risk of death from some cancers, lower the risk of having kidney stones, help guard against some skin cancers, help prevent damages that cause cataract in the eyes, help protect from an eye disorder called blepharospasm, be beneficial to the liver and colon, help boost any long-term memory, also reduces the risk of developing diseases like Parkinson's or Alzheimer's, also from Nichols 2017. There's probably more research needed in many of these studies, but caffeine in moderation can be very healthy. Caffeine may also improve caffeine may also improve lung functions in the body, and that's according to an article by Dam et al. From 2020. So here's an illustration about the side effects of caffeine in the different areas of the body that it affects and what those effects cause. So you can see the central nervous system and the muscular area, respiratory area, urinary, systemic, visual, ears, skin, heart, gastric, and then sleep deprivation is in bold. So we know that caffeine affects all areas of our bodies. So let's move on here and talk more about the risks of caffeine. High levels of caffeine can make anxiety and depression increase, cause those with type 2 diabetes have higher glucose levels, cause a negative effect during pregnancy and on the infant, reduce the chance of pregnancy, cause gout, bladder problems, insomnia, headaches, cause negative effects on menopause, cause heartburn, and an upset stomach. And that's from the Nichols 2017 article. Too much caffeine can also cause jitters and shakes, issues with heartbeat, high blood pressure, dizziness, dependency, dehydration, irritability, muscle tremors, diarrhea, and nausea, from Nichols 2017. There's probably also more research needed on the risks of caffeine, but these issues are definitely concerning and should be considered. There was an instance where caffeine unfortunately brought on a cardiac event in a teenager which caused his death, and that was according to an article by Monty 2017. This teenager consumed 3 caffeinated drinks which caused this to happen, but he had no history of heart problems, also from the Monty 2017 article. So let's go over just some facts about how the brain or how caffeine affects the brain. In a new study of the brain using mice, neuroscientists found that neurons in the thalamus are what control sleep and wakefulness. And this is according to the University of Bern from 2018. Consider that since caffeine stimulates the brain and blocks ATP, it could also have a negative effect on the thalamus and again be preventing rest that our bodies truly need. The membrane receptors, and these are the white parts that we saw coming out of the brain in the earlier image, they are inside the cell membranes in the brain, act to help deliver messages from neurotransmitters to cells during a chemical synapse. And that's from our text, Solomon et al., 2019. Dendrites in the brain extend from the cell membrane and are also important in the process of communication between cells during a chemical synapse because they receive signals and transmit them to the cell body. That's according to our text, Solomon et al., 2019. There was also a study completed that observed the effect of caffeine on the hippocampus of rats, which found that the caffeine caused cellular calcium levels to rise, according to Korkotian and Segal, 1999. This case study also found that the caffeine caused the spines of the dendrites to grow longer, which may have a positive influence on functions of the brain. Also, according to Korkotian and Segal, 1999, let us consider that too much caffeine could be causing an overload of information to be transmitted in our brains at once and at a fast pace, which may not be healthy. However, caffeine may also be affecting our brain in a positive way, since it causes dendrites to grow. The hippocampus is one of the most studied areas of the brain, and its main functions are learning and memory, according to Dresden, 2017. The hippocampus can be damaged by sicknesses such as Alzheimer's or brain injuries. So let us consider that overall caffeine in moderation probably has a more positive effect on the hippocampus if it is not damaged. And then here's an image of the hippocampus. And so we can see where the hippocampus is here in this area of our brain. And then right above that is the thalamus. And that's kind of in the middle there. And let's see. This was a slide that we missed. I wanted to show you what the dendrite looks like just to give an illustration, and it's kind of like tree-like branches, and then the receptor is wedged in between the cells. So these two work to help get messages to our cells, and that is taking place in our brain. So what is a healthy amount of caffeine, and how can we limit our caffeine intake? Well, up to 400 milligrams of caffeine daily is a suggested safe amount for healthy adults, which is estimated to be equivalent to 4 cups of coffee, according to the Mayo Clinic. It is important to be mindful that actual caffeine levels can vary in beverages, especially in energy drinks, and some people may be more sensitive to caffeine than others, according to the Mayo Clinic. We can also cut back on caffeine by drinking more water, examining our caffeine intake more closely, lessening our caffeine intake gradually, and researching the amount of caffeine we should be consuming in comparison to our weight and health, according to Haupt 2012. Depending on how we choose to consume caffeine, we can research healthy alternatives to it, such as choosing to drink non-caffeinated sodas or even decaffeinated coffee. We can replace our caffeine intake with healthier habits, also according to Haupt 2012. So in conclusion, we can see from the studies and research discussed here that there are significant benefits to consuming caffeine as well as concerning risks. Let me suggest that our takeaway from this should be that although caffeine in moderation is typically safe, we should definitely be watching our intake more closely. As so many of us rely on caffeine every day, it is vitally important we have a better understanding of the effects of caffeine, especially the effects it is having on our brain functions. I hope you have been able to decide whether you should make changes to your caffeine intake. So I also included a couple scriptures here, just because I know we can always go back to scripture when with any kind of questions, even with caffeine. So, and there's probably more that we could refer to in the Bible, but I just picked out a couple. The first one says, I have the right to do anything you say, but not everything is beneficial. I have the right to do anything, but I will not be mastered by anything. This is from the Holy Bible, the New International Version, 1 Corinthians chapter 6, verse 12. And the second one is, so whether you eat or drink, or whatever you do it all for the glory of God. Also from the Holy Bible, the New International Version, 1 Corinthians chapter 10, verse 31. So please take a look at my references. And if you wanted to go back and look at some of the articles or look where the images were retrieved, feel free to do that. So we have 2 pages of references. And that is all I have. So thank you very much.